time is lying to you, and your brain is helping it. You think you know what time is because you've looked at a clock, because you've felt yourself getting older, because you've experienced how long waiting feels and how fast memories seem to move. But I need to tell you this, calmly and clearly. None of those things are time. They are internal sensations. They are illusions created by the human brain. Most people live with the same image of time. They imagine it as a river, as if time flows, carrying you with it, dragging you from the past to the present, from the present into the future. But there is a serious problem here. If time is a river, how fast is it flowing? 1 second per second. That answer means nothing. It's like saying a table is 1 table long. It reveals that you don't actually understand reality. Time does not flow. Time does not carry you anywhere. If you believe you understand how time works just because you can count seconds, then a very harsh awakening is waiting for you. So let's start where the confusion really begins. Your brain. You think your internal clock is reliable, but it isn't. It's chaotic. It's subjective. It's nowhere near as objective as you believe. Try a simple experiment. Count to 60 seconds. Just sit there and count. 1, 2, 3. You think you're tracking time. But what you're really doing is activating a deeply personal, deeply subjective mechanism inside your own mind. Some of you hear your own voice as you count. Imagine that inside your mind, someone is speaking, as if there's a voice in there, rhythmically saying, 1, 2, 3. And then someone interrupts you. You lose the count. The mechanism stops. The program crashes. But some of you hear no voice at all. You see images instead. A strip filled with numbers. A visual sequence moving forward, like a measuring tape. Some people can count and read at the same time. Choose clothes. Think about something else. And this reveals a very important truth. What you experience as time is not an objective flow. It's a synchronization game played by your brain. You assume the feeling of time is the same for everyone, but it isn't. It's not universal. It's a biological hallucination. That's exactly why, when talking about the universe, you must set your intuition aside. Because intuition evolved to keep you alive, not to understand reality. In physics, we don't ask, what is time? That question belongs to philosophers. We ask, how is time measured? And the answer is disappointingly simple. Time is a way to order events. That's it. Imagine you have a deck of cards. You lay them out on a table. The jack comes before the queen. The king comes after. The cards don't move. The table doesn't flow. Order is just a structural property. Time is the table. Events are the cards. When we say time passes, we're just reading the cards from left to right. But this is where people make their biggest mistake. You think time is a container, as if the universe were an empty box and time were a clock ticking inside it. As if, even if we emptied the universe completely, time would still remain. Tick, tick. That is wrong. That is the Newtonian view, and it is dead. Time is not the background. Time is a measure of change. If nothing in the universe changes, if atoms don't vibrate, if light doesn't move, if energy doesn't flow, then time has no meaning. To define a single second, you need a physical process, a swinging pendulum, a vibrating quartz crystal, a cesium atom. Time is not separate from things. Time is a property of things themselves. This is where your intuition starts to resist. But time makes me age, you say. Time spoils milk. No. Time does nothing. Time has no hands. It doesn't walk into your refrigerator and spoil your milk. Bacteria do that. Chemical reactions do that. Entropy does that. Time is just a measurement system we use to track these processes. Saying that time does things is like saying rulers build houses. Rulers don't build. Carpenters do. Time is not an agent. Time is a ruler. And now we arrive at something stranger. If time is just a measuring ruler, what happens if that ruler bends? This is not science fiction. This is a measurable fact. We once believed that a second was the same everywhere in the universe. On Earth, on Mars. That feels intuitive, and it is completely wrong. The rate at which clocks tick depends on where they are and how fast they are moving. This is not a mechanical flaw. This is reality itself. You are always moving through the universe at a constant speed. But that speed is divided between space and time. When you sit still in a chair, all of your motion is through time. You move 1 second per second into the future. But when you walk, when you run, when you fly, you redirect part of that motion into space, and mathematically, time slows down. Your clock slows down. Your aging slows down. You're not breaking anything. You're just changing direction. You change. If you were to move at the speed of light, there would be nothing left for time. For a photon, time does not pass. It is created and absorbed at the same instant. If that feels strange to you, that's good. Because this is the point where common sense collapses and science begins. Now think, if time does not flow, if the past is not erased, if the future already exists, then what are you? You are not a passenger moving through time. You are the process that happens within time. You are change. You are reaction. You are a local expression of entropy. And if this idea unsettles you, that's very good. Because confusion is not the end of science. Confusion is the beginning. Time is not what you think it is. It is stranger, deeper, more beautiful. And the fact that a brain made of stardust can even grasp, this is the greatest miracle. The greatest miracle. But we cannot stop here. Because one of the greatest misconceptions about time is this. We believe that understanding time means controlling it. The human brain loves control. It sees uncertainty as a threat. So when we talk about time, we immediately want to measure it, divide it, plan it. We split it into seconds. We group it into minutes. We build clocks. We create calendars. And then we look at these systems and say, time is passing. But in reality, it's not time that's passing. It's us. And this is not a metaphor. This is physical reality. Because you are not an object moving through time. You are part of the space-time structure itself. You do not move on top of it. You form within it. This distinction is difficult to understand because our language was never built for it. Our language isn't built for this. Language looks for an agent. It wants something to do something. That's why we say, time changed me. Time heals everything. Time destroys everything. But all of this is a linguistic trap. Time does nothing. Time is not a stage. Time is not an actor. Time is not a director. Time is a measure. You change. Your cells divide. Your proteins fold. Your neurons form connections and lose them. And we use the word time to track the sequence of these changes. If this feels cold to you, that's a good sign. Because at this point, romantic illusion dies and honest reality takes its place. People want time to be romantic. They want it to be a river. They want it to flow. They want it to carry the past away. But physics is not romantic. Physics is honest. and honesty can be uncomfortable. Now let me ask you a question. If time doesn't flow, if everything happens in the now, then why don't we remember the future? This question has confused people for centuries. If the laws of physics are symmetric, if the equations work forward and backward, why does memory only work in one direction? Once again, the answer is not time. The answer is entropy. In simple terms, entropy is the number of possible states. For an egg to remain whole, only a few very specific conditions are required. But for an egg to break, there are countless possibilities. Because of this, the universe statistically moves from order to disorder. We experience this direction as the arrow of time. But this arrow is not fundamental. It is a consequence of probability. If the universe had begun with different initial conditions, perhaps our memory would work differently. Perhaps we would remember the future and forget the past. If that idea feels unsettling to you, if that sounds absurd to you, that's normal. Your brain didn't evolve for this. The brain didn't evolve to discover truth. It evolved to protect you from danger. And danger always exists in the now. That's why consciousness is focused on the present. That's why you remember the past. That's why you only predict the future. This is not a cosmic law. It's a biological strategy. Now let's move to an even more disturbing point. If time is a dimension, if past, present, and future exist within the same structure, then this question is usually asked in the wrong way. People ask, if the future already exists, how can I choose? But physics doesn't ask that. Physics asks, is this system predictable? And the answer is, sometimes. The universe is neither fully deterministic nor fully chaotic. It is lawful, but non-linear. You exist inside the future, but the future does not exist inside you. You make decisions, but those decisions are not made in a vacuum. They're the result of prior states, physical laws, and probabilities. This does not destroy freedom. It places it in context. You do not choose above time. You choose within time. And that difference matters. Now pause for a moment and think. If your life is a film reel, if every frame already exists, then what are you doing? You are not moving the film forward. You are not watching the film. You are the film itself. Your consciousness is the light of the projector, and that light experiences each frame as now. That's why you feel flow. That's why it feels like time is passing. But time is not what's flowing. Your attention is. You shift focus from one frame to the next, and that focus, it creates a sense of story for you. And story is something the human brain loves. Because stories explain danger. Stories create cause and effect. Stories give the illusion of control. But the universe does not tell stories. The universe creates structure. And we turn that structure into a story. That's why, when you think about time, you also have to think about how your own brain works. Because time is a mirror. It doesn't show you the universe. It shows you how you see the universe. When you look at a clock, you are not seeing time. You are seeing a tool for social coordination, a mechanism designed to synchronize society. Real time bends near black holes. It slows down next to fast-moving objects. And from some perspectives, it stops completely. This is a wild idea, and we try to domesticate it. That is not easy. That's why your brain resists. That's why this topic makes you uncomfortable. And that's a very good thing. Because science begins with discomfort. If what I've said has confused you because you've moved from comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths, time is not what you think it is. It is less romantic. but more real, colder, but more honest. And in the middle of all this complexity, the strangest thing of all is this. You still wake up in the morning. You still drink tea. You're still late to meet a friend. Because biological time is a practical interface running on top of physical time. Just like you can drive a car without knowing how the engine works, you can live without knowing what time really is. But knowing changes you. And that is the purpose of this channel. Not to comfort you with answers, but to wake you up with questions. Because sometimes, what changes a human life is not the answer. It's the question itself. And that question is already inside you. And maybe now you should stop and ask yourself, if time really isn't what I think it is, then why do I feel its pressure every day? Why do I rush? Why am I afraid of being late? Why do I panic when I say, I don't have enough time? Because time is not only a physical concept. Time is also a psychological construct. Society has built rules on top of time, deadlines, age limits. You should do this by this age. And these rules create a second kind of time inside your mind. Unlike physical time, this time compresses you. This time rushes you. This time makes you feel like you're always behind. But this is not a law of the universe. It is a human design. And sometimes we confuse that design with reality. Physical time does not pressure you. It does not rush you anywhere. It does not care about your plans. The one under pressure is your consciousness. The one rushing is your attention. And attention is not time. People often say, I wasted my time. But even that sentence is wrong. Time is not spent. You spend your energy. You spend your attention. Time merely records the sequence of changes. From this perspective, time is not guilty. Time is a silent witness, and that silence can be frightening. Because we look for someone to blame. We look at the passing years and say, time took me away. But the truth is this. You made decisions inside those years. Sometimes you stopped. Sometimes you ran. Time did none of it. Accepting this is difficult, because it gives the responsibility back to you. Blaming time is easy. Looking at your own choices is hard. But science always chooses the hard path. And that is why time. Thinking about time brings you closer, not only to the universe, but to yourself. You no longer say, time changed me. You say, I changed, and I measured it with time. It's a subtle difference, but it changes everything. And maybe this is time's greatest secret. It doesn't give answers. It leaves you alone with a question. And you decide what to do with that question. Will you run? Or will you look? Because thinking about time is really thinking about living. And living is not drifting with the flow. Living is waking up inside structure. Time does not carry you. Time does not wait for you. Time simply exists. And so do you. Inside the same structure. That can be frightening. But it can also be liberating, because if time does not rule you, then who does? That question is the beginning of your path, and now we arrive at the most dangerous place, because at this point, you've already accepted that time is not a river. You've seen that the feeling of flow is an interface created by your brain. You already know that the ticking of a clock is not the heartbeat of the universe. It's just lines we draw over change. But now, a bigger question appears. If time doesn't flow, why do we live as if it does? This is not just a memory versus future problem. It's something deeper. It's an attention problem. When you feel time passing, what's actually passing is not seconds. What's passing is the way your brain processes the now. Your brain works like a camera, but this camera is not always recording. Sometimes it doesn't film. Sometimes it edits. Sometimes it stitches scenes together. And sometimes it deceives you by inserting extra frames. And you say, I remembered. But a memory is not the past itself. A memory is a reconstruction your brain creates in the present moment. You don't travel to the past. You rebuild a model of the past. That's why you remember the same event differently years later. Because the past doesn't change, but the system that reads it does. Now, connect this to time. If the past is a structure recreated inside you, then the feeling of time flowing is also a recreated structure. You evolved to perceive sequence, because sequence allows prediction of danger. If you couldn't see sequence, you couldn't build cause and effect. And without cause and effect, you wouldn't survive. Which means this: the sense of time is a product of the survival instinct. And that instinct doesn't only rule the edges of the cosmos, it rules your daily life. You fear being late because your brain codes lateness as a threat to survival. When you say, my time is running out, your brain reads that as loss of resources. When you say, I'm getting old, your brain interprets it as approaching absence. And here, time stops being physics and becomes psychology. And psychology sometimes overwhelms physics. Now stop for a moment and think. When you say, there is no time, what is it that's actually missing? Seconds? No. The universe does not run out of seconds. Seconds do not flow. Seconds are just units of measurement. What runs out is your energy. What runs out is your attention. What runs out is your body's ability to maintain this structure. You are not a victim of time. You are a system living inside thermodynamics. Yes, thermodynamics. Because we often speak about time in romantic language, but its harshest language is written there. The language of thermodynamics. You are alive because there is an energy difference between hot and cold, between order and disorder, between what is possible and what is not. Your body is an engine. You take in food, break it down, convert it into energy, and with that energy, you maintain your structure. You create order. But that order is not cheap. Every time you create order within yourself, you increase the total disorder of the universe just a little. You are someone who pushes against entropy, but only for a while. Because the universe does not forgive you. The universe does not make exceptions. It simply operates on probability. And the dominant direction of probability is always the same, toward disorder. That's why you age. That's why the body breaks down. That's why you say, time took me. But again, time does not take you. What changes is your ability to convert energy into order. And now a colder truth arrives. The thing you call I is also temporary. You experience yourself as a stable entity, as if there is a fixed self inside you that does not change. But this too is an illusion. You are the name of a process that renews itself every second. You are a flow of neural signals. You are a story assembled by memory. You are a mechanism that creates the feeling of continuity. That's why the block universe idea disturbs people, because the block universe says all frames exist. And your brain immediately asks, then what am I doing? But maybe the question itself is wrong. Maybe you are not the one who changes the film. Maybe you are the name of the change inside the film. You do not exist inside time. You exist with time. And truly accepting this, When you truly accept this, life becomes strangely lighter. Because then you understand this. Time owes you nothing. Time never promised you anything. Time will never say, "That's enough." But this is not fatalism. On the contrary, it is responsibility. If time is not carrying you, then what is? Your habits, your choices, where your attention stays. And here is the strongest turning point for this video. You are not fighting time. You are fighting your own automatic behavior. And the most painful part of this fight is this. Your brain was built to protect you. But that same brain can rush you to death because the brain always lives in the future. It searches for risk. It plans the next. It never wants to stay here. And you call this anxiety. Anxiety is the psychological shadow of time. Physical time does not pressure you. What pressures you is a future scenario. You poison the present with events that haven't even happened yet. And this may be the greatest irony about time. You learn that time is an illusion, and yet you still drown inside it. Because illusion does not obey knowledge. Illusion obeys the nervous system. That's why knowing the truth about time is not enough. You have to live it. Sometimes you have to stop. Sometimes you have to choose the now. Sometimes you have to return from that imaginary future your brain keeps dragging you into. And this return is not mysticism, it's biology. Because consciousness is focus. And when focus changes, the experience of time changes. Once, 5 minutes in fear feels like 2 hours. Another time, 2 hours with someone you love feels like 5 minutes. Time did not change. What changed? Your processing speed. What changes is your brain's frame rate. And maybe the most human definition of time is this. Time is the measure of attention. In physics, time is the ordering of events. In psychology, time is the rhythm of attention. And because you confuse these two, you suffer. So here is the line that belongs at the end of this video. Time does not flow, but you create the feeling of flow. Time does not carry you, but you feel carried. And that feeling writes the story of your entire life. The question is this: who do you allow to write that story? Your clock, your society, your fear, or you? Because thinking about time eventually leads to one place: your life. And life is not waiting inside time. Life is choosing inside structure. And so, once again, I stand before you with the same question. What are you waiting for? Truth be told, there is nothing to wait for. Waiting is your attention fleeing the present moment and taking refuge in the future. Yet within this very moment, everything already exists. You just have to close your eyes and learn to see it. Now, I have a small request for you. What was the first feeling this video stirred in you? Even if it's just one word, share it in the comments. Because Lutfuz de Ruhunda is not mine alone. This is a conversation between us. Every feeling, every thought, deepens this space a little more. Until we meet again in the next video, try to live in just one moment. Turn your eyes not toward emptiness, but toward the invisible connections. Everything is connected. It's just that sometimes we fail to see it. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because in the videos to come, we will return to even deeper questions. What does memory truly belong to? Stay with yourself. Thank you.